Welcome to the Get Licensed to Build workshop. This is a free online workshop for those who want to get their California contractor's license. Our goal this morning is to go through all the parts of the license application and give you practical tips to help you complete it correctly. We want to give you every opportunity to demonstrate your experience and qualifications so that you can get your California contractor's license. We will also help get you ready for your licensing examinations and give you a link to a video that shows you exactly what you can expect on your test day. Today's webcast is being presented by the Contractor State License Board, the government agency responsible for regulating the California construction industry. I'm Anna Rodriguez, Enforcement Supervisor. Joining us today is Fode Kiragoslo, Licensing Supervisor. Good morning, Fode.
Good morning, Anna. CSLB is overseen by a 15-member board that directs administrative policy for our operations. Our board is made up of 10 public members, including 1 labor representative, 1 local building official, and 1 representative of a statewide senior citizen organization, and 5 contractors. Appointments are made by governor and the state legislature.
Please note, CSLB test centers are open. Unvaccinated applicants will have to wear masks on test day. Unless required by the local government, face coverings are not required for fully vaccinated individuals inside CSL buildings and test centers. Before arriving for your test, you want to make sure you check and follow the local COVID-19 mask guidance for the test center that you will be attending. If you're watching right now on either YouTube Live or Facebook Live and want to ask questions, you'll need to join us on WebEx. There is a banner with a link at the top of our homepage, www.cslb.ca.gov. That is also where you can download that presentation to follow along. The presentation file includes clickable bonus links that appear on slides throughout this workshop. We're going to present a lot of information today, so don't worry if you don't get it all. We will archive this video and put it on our YouTube channel, so you can go back and watch it again. To ask a question on WebEx, you're going to want to use the Q&A feature, not the chat feature. It's on the bottom right of the screen. Make sure you send your questions to all panelists. Finally, we tend to get a lot of questions during these workshops on how you document your work experience and what credit you can use to get for your education and military services. Those questions are fine, but we would ask that you wait to send us those questions until after you see that part of the workshop. We will go through your questions at the end of our presentation, which should last around 45 minutes.
The information obtained during this webcast is not nor is intended to be legal advice. While this webcast contains general information, including legal guidelines for contractor license application, it does not contain definitive statements of the law and may not reflect the most current legal developments in the construction industry. Such guidelines communicated or discussed during the webcast are for informational purposes only. If you have questions about the application of the law for specific situations, you should contact an attorney who is familiar with California construction law or review the 2021 edition of the CSLB publication, California Contractors License Law and Reference Book. You can download it for free on CSLB website or purchase it directly from the publisher, LexisNexis. There are links for both at the bottom of the screen.
So here's a list of what we're going to be covering today. We will take you through the process of applying for your California contractor's license. First, who needs a license? Why you should get a contractor's license? The minimum qualifications you'll need to get a license and what credits you might qualify for. The types of business entities and also the different CSLB license classifications, including our new B2 Residential Remodeling classification. We will also spend a lot of time giving you tips on how to help fill out your application, including how to demonstrate your work experience to meet the minimum qualifications. We're going to be covering fingerprint requirements for a criminal background check, and we will help you get ready for the exam or exams that you'll need to pass in order to get your license. And finally, the other things that you'll need to have in place before your license is issued, things like a bond and insurance.
First, we will take a look at who needs a license. Here in California, a state contractor license is needed for all construction projects priced at $500 or more. That total includes both labor and materials. The law doesn't let you break down a project into $499 pieces. It's the entire project. Also, you can't charge an hourly rate to get around the $500 threshold. If the hourly cost times the number of hours for the job totals $500 or more, you need a contractor's license. So what is the definition of a contractor? The definition comes from the state's Business and Professions Code. In this case, it's section 7026.1. We have got a link to that code at the top of the page if you download the presentation. I will read the entire code, but pay special attention to the part we underline. A contractor is any person, consultant to an owner, building, firm, association, organization, partnership, business trust, corporation, or company who or which undertakes, offers to undertake, propose to have the capacity to undertake, or submits a bid to construct any building or home improvement project or part thereof. In other words, you don't have to do the work to break the law. You must have a contractor's license just to advertise that you can do the construction work, or even to give a bid for a construction job if the bid totals $500 or more.
So you may be asking yourself, why should I get a license? Here are a few good reasons. First, you can take pride in being a licensed professional. It shows that you've taken the steps to get licensed and that you are serious about your career choice. It also allows you to make valuable contributions to your local community. Unlicensed contractors must operate in the shadows and cannot help make their community a better place to live. Next, it allows you to get paid for the work that you do. There is a value to the work done by a licensed professional. Being licensed also gives you legal options if customers don't pay you. Unlicensed contractors do not have a legal right to take someone to court to get paid because their work required a license and they weren't licensed to do that work in the first place. Also, you would be able to use the mechanic lien laws. Next, you don't have to look over your shoulder with the fear of getting caught. Contracting without a valid California license can lead to misdemeanor charges. Those caught face a first offense sentence of up to 6 months in jail and or a $5,000 fine, and potential administrative fines anywhere from $200 to $15,000. Subsequent violations can result in increased criminal penalties and fines. In addition, you may face felony charges if you contract without a license when one is required in a state or federally declared disaster area, or if you try to pass yourself off as a licensed contractor by illegally using a license number. Remember, there are no educational requirements to get a license. Also, you do not have to go to a license preparation school in order to get your contractor's license.
So what do you need to get your license? First, it is important to understand that CSLB does not license individuals. We license companies or businesses, also called entities. Many entities are one-person operations, but know that every entity, even a one-person operation, must have a qualifier. That's someone who has the minimum experience and is responsible for the operations of the company. Here is the short list of minimum qualifications you will need. You must be at least 18 years old. You must have either a valid Social Security number or valid Individual Taxpayer Identification Number, ITIN. You can qualify the license in one of two ways. First, you can qualify the license by having at least 4 years experience within the last 10 years as a journey person, foreperson, supervising employee, or contractor in the trade being applied for. Or you can also get a qualifier for a license who has that required experience. We will spend a lot of time talking about how you can demonstrate your experience on your application in a few minutes.
It may be possible for you to substitute your education, technical training, and apprenticeship training for some of the required experience. We tend to get a lot of questions on this one. First, CSLB cannot prejudge your experience. Due to the number of applications we receive and process every month, we don't have enough staff for them to be able to prejudge your experience. We can only review your documents after you apply for license. Next, to get education credit, the coursework must be directly related to the work that you will be doing as a contractor. Your education cannot be substituted for more than 3 years or 36 months of the required experience, meaning you will need to have at least 1 year of practical experience if you get the full 36 months of education credit. To apply for education credit, you must provide CSLB with written documentation. That means a copy of any apprenticeship completion certificates you earned, or get the official technical school or college transcripts. You want to have your transcripts mailed directly to you. Do not open the envelope. You want to leave it sealed and include it with your CSLB application packet. Note that high school courses will not earn you any credit towards your contractor license.
If you are looking to get education credit to meet the 4 years or 48 months of experience, you will need to get your license first. This is the most important slide of this entire workshop. This is the kind of credit you can expect to receive for your education. Note that for some areas, we are only giving you averages. You will see that your credit will be determined on a case-by-case basis. We are not going to be able to give you any more guidance than what you see on this slide. So our best advice is do not rely on the combination of your experience and education credits to barely hit the 4-year experience mark. There is always the real possibility you will not get as much education credit as you were hoping. Let's go through the chart from the most credit you can get to the least. The most education credit you can get is for a Bachelor's of Science degree in Construction Management. That degree will get you the full 36 months of credit. Next is a Master's or Bachelor's degree in Business or a Law degree. Any one of those will get you 24 months of credit. An Associate in Science degree in Construction Management will get you 18 months credit. A bachelor degree in some other major will get you an average of 18 months credit. An associate degree in major beside construction management will get you an average of 6 months credit. Apprenticeship completion certificates will get you 24 to 36 months depending on the classification of the program. For example, a sheet metal worker apprenticeship get you 24 months credit for C20, SVAC, and C43 sheet metal classifications only. The other hand, a lineman apprenticeship gets you 36 months in C7 low voltage classification and C10 electrical classifications only. If you have transcripts for other technical training you have taken, you might be able to get some minimal credit as well. Again, don't use your education credit to try and squeak by the 4-year or 48-month requirement.
If you've served in the military, some of that service might count as well. On the bottom of the page, you will see a bonus link to our CSLB Military Application Assistance Program where you can learn more. The license qualifier also must pass 2 different exams, both taken on the computer at one of our test centers. One exam is on California business law. The other is specific to the trade covered by the license. We also have limited specialty licenses, which we will discuss a little bit later. Those licenses only require that the qualifier take the law and business exam. As we mentioned, the qualifier is the one who must take and pass the required exams or qualify for a waiver. We are not going to spend too much time on the waiver exam, only to note that you might be able to request a waiver from taking one or both of the exams in very specific situations. We recommend that you look at the CSLB website for more information on those specific situations. We have included a bonus link at the bottom of this page here. The qualifier must also undergo the criminal background check. We will go more in depth on that in just a few minutes. After the license is issued, the qualifier must be in a position to exercise direct supervision and control of the company's operations. They are also responsible for all workmanship issues. It is also important to note here that if you are trying to get a B general building contractor license and you hire subcontractors to work under you, you are responsible as a project's prime contractor for the work that they do.
The next thing you are going to need to determine before applying for your license is which type of entity your business will be. There are 4 types. First is a sole ownership, where the owner or responsible managing employee may serve as the license qualifier. Just about 2/3 of the contracting business in California are sole ownerships. Second, a corporation, where either of the current officers designate as the responsible managing officer or the responsible managing employee may serve as qualifier. Just under 1/3 of our licensees are corporations. A distant third is a partnership, where either of the general partners or responsible managing employee may serve as qualifier. That's 2% of our licensees. Finally, a limited liability company or LLC, where a responsible managing member, responsible managing manager, responsible managing officer, or responsible managing employee may serve as qualifier. About 1.5% of California construction companies are LLCs.
Now let's talk about license classifications. A contractor's license can include multiple classifications, although you must select one when filling out your application. While there are more than 40 license classifications in California, they all fall under 3 distinct categories. There is a bonus link to our classifications list at the bottom of the screen. First, we have Class A or General Engineering Contractors. These are the contractors who deal with fixed works that require specialized engineering knowledge and skill. A contractors are the ones who build projects such as freeways, skyscrapers, and dams. Today, there are over 19,000 A contractors in the state. Next, we have our Class B or General Building Contractors. This is the largest class of contractors in California, with more than 133,000 contractors. B contractors have a principal business dealing with any structure built, being built, or to be built that requires as part of its construction at least 2 unrelated building trades or crafts. In other words, a B contractor shouldn't take a prime contract for any project involving trades other than framing or carpentry, unless the prime contractor requires at least 2 unrelated building trades other than framing and carpentry. There is no limitation on B contractors to stop them from taking on projects that only include framing or carpentry. The final classes are C or specialty contractors. These licenses are for construction work that requires special skill and whose principal contracting business involves the use of specialized building trades or crafts. Examples from this class include the C10 electrical contractors, C20 HVAC contractors, C27 landscaping contractors, C36 plumbing contractors, C39 roofing contractors, C46 solar contractors, and C53 swimming pool contractors, just to name a few. There are also 30 limited specialty classes under the C61 classification. These include the C61/D49 Tree Service Limited class. More than 209,000 contractors hold a C license in California.
CSLB is excited to announce our first new licensing classification in a decade. It's called the B2 Residential Remodeling classification. The B2 allows contractors who don't have a structural framing experience to get a license with CSLB. Here is what interested applicants need to know. B2 license holders must engage in 3 or more trades or crafts on a project. B2 licensees also are limited to working on existing residential wood frame structures. There are some things B2 license holders cannot do. They cannot make structural alterations to load-bearing partitions and walls. They cannot install or extend electrical or plumbing systems. They can make modification to existing systems. For example, install recessed lighting or alter plumbing for 2 shower heads. B2 licenses also cannot install or replace an HVAC system. Like all other CSLB licensees, B2 applicants or licensees must comply with CSLB Experience, examination, license bond, and workers' compensation insurance requirements. CSLB is accepting applications for the B2 license, and we are scheduling exam dates right now. If you have more questions about the B2 license, email the licensing division at licensing@cslb.ca.gov.
When you are ready to apply for a license, here are the 2 forms that you will need. On the left is a license application. On the right is a certification of work experience. You can get these forms on the CSLB website. There is a bonus link here on the left side of the page. Be sure to download this presentation. We will give you a closer look at the different sections of these forms a little later.
Okay, now let's break down the steps of the application process. First, identify who will be the qualifier for your license. That person will be responsible for exercising direct supervision and control of the company. If you are using an RME, responsible managing employee, as your qualifier, determine if he or she can qualify for an exam waiver. Be aware of companies you pay to connect you with a licensed qualifier. In some cases, these qualifiers are in a different part of the state and cannot exercise the direct supervision needed, or they aren't willing or don't understand their role as a qualifier. Next, make sure you complete the correct application. There are 2 options: application for original contractor license and application for original contractor license examination waiver, 7065. We have got links to both at the bottom of the page.
The next step is to determine your company name. Take a look at the application for examples. Some things to keep in mind are your name cannot be misleading or imply that you qualify for a license classification other than what you are getting. For example, if you're going to apply for a C36 plumbing license, you cannot have company name of John Smith Plumbing Construction, Heating, and Drywall. Corporate and LLC names must match exactly the name that you have registered with the California Secretary of State's office. The names of everyone on your Secretary of State's registration must be listed on your CSLB application. You can also use what is called the DBA, which stands for Doing Business As. The main thing to remember here is the DBA name cannot be misleading, and you must use that name in all advertising and on all of your contracts. Next, you'll want to get certifications to support your work experience. You should do this even if you apply for an exam waiver, and feel free to use multiple pages if necessary. Next, be sure to note if you are a military veteran. Some of your military service may be used to meet your 4 years of experience qualification. Also, your application may be expedited through our Military Application Assistance Program. We mentioned that a few minutes ago, but here is a bonus link at the bottom of the screen for more information on that program. To participate, you must have had an honorable discharge. Be sure to include a copy of your military DD-214 paperwork showing your honorable discharge with your application. The next couple of items are basic but important. You're going to want to make sure you proofread your application for any missing information. Make sure you have provided an answer to all the necessary fields. Second, don't forget to sign and date your application. Finally, determine if you need special accommodation to take your exams. If so, you want to complete a request form and submit it with your application. We'll talk about the use of a translator a little bit later.
Next, let's take a closer look at our fingerprint requirements, which are used for a criminal background check. This is a list of those who must submit a full set of fingerprints to CSLB, depending on the type of business entity. All applicants, each corporate officer, each partner, each owner, the responsible managing employee, and all home improvement salespersons. If you are in California, you must submit fingerprints electronically with what's called live scan. You can get an updated list of live scan locations in California, broken down by county, on the Attorney General's website. We have a link here, or you can simply go to Attorney General's website and search for live scan. You will also see we have a bonus link at the bottom of the screen to the fingerprint information page on our CSLB website. If you're out of a state, it's going to be tough for you to get us your fingerprints. That's because you must submit hard copies of them the old-fashioned way. Those take anywhere between 3 and 6 months for the FBI and the Department of Justice to process. So you might want to consider traveling to California to get your electronic live scan done here.
So what happens if you have any criminal convictions? CSLB may deny your license for the following reasons. First, if your conviction is substantially related to the duties, functions, and qualifications of a contractor. Also, if your conviction involves fraud or a violent crime. There are other factors CSLB also considers. They are the nature and severity of the crime, the amount of time that has passed since the conviction, and also any evidence of rehabilitation that you submit to CSLB. CSLB evaluates felony criminal convictions which occurred within 7 years of the application date. So for applications filed this year, we would go back to 2014. For misdemeanor criminal convictions, we would look back for 3 years from the application date, so to 2018. That's unless the convictions are for a violent felony, certain sexual crimes, or financial crimes related to construction. CSLB denies only 1% of the total applications we get based on criminal convictions. You'll also note the bonus link at the bottom of the page that will provide you with fingerprint information.
Okay, along with the education credits we talked about earlier, this next section is probably the most important of the entire workshop and the part of the application that causes the most headaches for applicants. It is how you demonstrate your work experience on your application. Remember, the license qualifier needs 4 years or 48 months of experience within the past years in the classification which they're applying. That means at least 4 years of experience since 2011. The experience must be at no less than a journeyman level or as a foreman, supervising employee, contractor, or owner builder. A journeyman is defined as an experienced worker who is fully qualified as opposed to a trainee and can perform trade without supervision, or one who has completed an apprenticeship program.
There's a limited amount of space on the application to show your certified work experience, so feel free to use additional pages if needed and simply attach them at the end of the work experience form. Use as many certifications of work experience forms as you need in order to prove the required 4 years of experience within the last 10 years. Use a different form for each certifier. Be as accurate as possible. Make sure that the person that is certifying your work describes the actual work that you performed and the dates in which you performed them. We will now share some examples of both good and unacceptable descriptions to demonstrate your work experience. Remember, do not copy and paste this information directly into your application. These are just examples.
At the top of this chart is the classification and type of experience you are trying to demonstrate. This first example is journey person experience. The overall theme we will keep repeating is the more specific the description, the better. The work experience form should be completed by your certifier, someone who has knowledge and has observed your work experience for the classification you are applying for. That person does not have to be a licensed contractor.
Okay, so our first example here is for a Class B general building contractor. The best type of description your certifier would use for a journey person experience is to be specific. Journey person experience must include hands-on work and should be something like this. Bob performed rough and finish carpentry, concrete forming and pours, rough out plumbing and electrical, interior exterior painting, and flooring on residential homes. An unacceptable description would be something more generic, something like this. Residential General Building Trades. For four-person experience, the description must include some hands-on work and or supervisory work. Here's an example of the best type of description. Bob oversaw other staff at job site performing rough and finish carpentry, concrete forming and pours, rough out plumbing and electrical, interior exterior painting, and flooring on residential homes. Again, something unacceptable would be something like this, something more generic. Residential General Building Trades. For supervising employee experience, the description should include an explanation of how you arrived at the supervisor level. For example, it should say something like this. As a construction lead on multiple projects, Bob supervised rough and finish carpentry, concrete forming and pours, rough out plumbing and electrical, interior exterior painting, and flooring on residential homes. Something unacceptable would be something like this. Residential General Building Trades. For out-of-the-state contractor experience, the description must include examples of work done that were either out of the state, on military or federal lands, or worked for a government entity. Applicants can qualify as a journey person, a foreperson, or a supervising employee, but be specific about your duties and employment circumstances. Our next example is going to be for a C27 landscaping contractor. First, for experience at the journeyman level. The best type of description your certifier would use would be something like this. Jane performed landscape construction, maintenance and installation of sprinklers, ground plants, low voltage lighting, ornamental yard art, concrete mow strips and pathways, and tree pruning. An unacceptable explanation would be something like this. Gardening, yard maintenance, planting. For a C27 landscaping contractor, the best work experience description for a foreperson would be something like this. Jane oversaw other staff at job site performing landscape construction, maintenance and installation of sprinklers, ground plants, low voltage lighting, ornamental yard art, concrete mow strips and pathways, and tree pruning. An unacceptable description again would be something like this. Gardening, yard maintenance, planting. For a C27 supervising employee, the description should include an explanation of how you arrived at the supervisor level. The best description would be something like this. As a construction lead on multiple projects, applicants supervised landscape construction, maintenance and installation of sprinklers, ground plants, low voltage lighting, ornamental yard art, concrete mow strips and pathways, and tree pruning. Unacceptable here for the supervising employee would be something general like this. Gardening, yard maintenance, planting. Finally, for out-of-state contractors, the same guidance that we showed you for the general building contractor would be required. Be sure to include examples of your out-of-state work, as well as work that was done on military or federal lands, or for a government entity. And be sure to be specific when you describe your duties and your employment circumstances. By law, CSLB must randomly review and verify all the information provided on at least 3% of the applications that we receive. Our next 3 slides are going to run down the acceptable documentation you can use to support your work experience in the event that your application is selected and you are asked to provide additional information. The supporting documentation should not be mailed in with your application. You will only need to provide this information here if it's requested by CSLB staff. On the lower right of this screen here, you'll see a link to this publication on our website, along with additional information on work experience documentation. If you look at the chart, you can see that the first column is for documents you can use if you were employed by a licensed contractor. The second column is for documenting your experience if you have been self-employed. The third column there is for documentation you will need if you are applying for a Class B General Building Contractor license and you need to use owner-builder experience to meet the experience requirement. Here's the next page of acceptable documentation. Again, you can click on the link to view and print this publication. If you do not have this information readily available, you may want to begin to gather it now, just in case you are asked to provide it in the future. Remember, your goal is that you're trying to demonstrate 4 years of experience within the last 10 years. CSLB staff may contact the certifier of experience or other parties to verify the experience that you have provided.
One other note, CSLB gets more than 1,000 applications in each month, so our application processing staff has seen it all. They've got 2 pieces of advice for you. First, don't cut and paste from this presentation. Also, don't try to get around having to take a trade test by applying for multiple subcategories under the C61 limited specialty classification. Okay, that's the content you will need to fill out your application. Before getting it to CSLB, double check it to make sure you did not miss anything. Be sure to sign and date it as well. And don't forget to include the all-important $330 application fee. You will pay the $200 initial licensing fee after you pass your exam or exams. Then put your application packet in the mail to CSLB or hand deliver to one of our public counters. We have got a bonus link at the bottom of the screen with our office locations.
Okay, now that we have gone through the information that you're going to need to include, here's a closer look at the application so you can see where that information goes. Here's section 1. This is where you're going to list your business name. Remember that when you select a business name, make sure that the name that you have selected is compatible with the classification and the entity that you are applying for. That way it's not misleading. If your business is a corporation or an LLC, you will need to make sure that the name that you have provided in this section here matches exactly the business name that you have registered with the Secretary of State. In line 2, you will indicate what classification you're applying for. The mailing address and phone number that you list on line 3A and 3C will be made public on CSLB's website once you are licensed. In section 2, you will select your business entity. If you're applying for a corporation or an LLC, you will need to provide your registration number provided to you by the Secretary of State. Make sure you pay extra attention to the instructions in this section pertaining to the entity for which you are applying. In section 3, you're going to list the name of the qualifier and list their information. Remember, the qualifier is a person that meets the experience requirements and will be responsible for the direct supervision and control of construction operations. The qualifier is also the person who takes the examinations. On line 6, you will list any previous or current license numbers you've held. You will also need to list the percentage of the new business owned by the qualifier. For example, if you are the only person that's going to be listed on the license, you need to list 100% here. On line number 7, you will need to indicate what position will be held by the qualifier. Each entity has different personnel requirements. You will need to make sure that you have listed all positions depending on the entity that you have selected. You can find more information on this on page 2 through 4 of the application instructions. Line number 8 is where you're going to sign and date your application. Section 4 is where you will list the personnel name for all remaining personnel that's going to be listed on your license. For example, if you're applying for a corporation, you will need to indicate who will be the responsible managing officer or employee, the president, the secretary, and the treasurer. Again, more information about this can be found on page 4 of the application instructions. If you have more than 4 people on your license, you can make additional copies of this page and include it with your application. For corporations and LLCs, you'll want to make sure that all personnel that are listed with the Secretary of State are listed in this section here. All personnel that will be listed on the license must sign the application here in section 4. Section 5 is a series of yes or no questions, so we're not going to cover those here. The next section is section 6. Here you may be granted credit towards the 4-year experience requirement based on your education. Question number 17 asks if you have completed an educational or apprenticeship program. You will need to submit official sealed transcripts if you would like to be considered for this credit. If you attended formal training or an apprenticeship program, you will need to provide a certificate of completion. You want to get those sealed transcripts mailed directly to you, then include the sealed transcripts with your application packet. Do not have the program send the transcripts directly to CSLB. You don't want to take the chance that we're not able to match it up with your application. CSLB may grant you up to 3 years of credit based on your education. The credit is not on a year-to-year basis, meaning that if you have a 2-year college degree, you won't necessarily be granted 2 years of credit towards the experience requirement. You may qualify for this credit regardless of when you completed your education. That 10-year time frame does not apply to education. You may also apply for this credit even if your education was received outside of the country. If your degree is in any other language other than English, it must be translated and evaluated by an accredited evaluation service that does business within the United States. Now we will discuss the certification of work experience. Part 1 will be filled out by you, the applicant. Here you will list the information about your employer, where you gained your experience. If you were self-employed when you gained the experience, please make sure that you check that box in line number 2. If you are applying for a B general construction license and will be using experience obtained while working on your own property, please make sure that you check the box in line number 4. Part number 2 will be filled out by your certifier, the person that you have selected. In this section, the certifier must include the dates in which you obtained the experience. They must also select if you were working on a part-time or full-time basis. Keep in mind, if you were working part-time, you will receive 50% of the credit for that time, which means you will need to provide 8 years of experience within the last 10 years. That way you meet the 4-year requirement. On line number 6, your certifier will need to list the duties that you performed or supervised that are considered critical for the classification that you are applying for. You can read a description of critical duties in the CSLB description of classification booklets available on our website. Remember, do not copy and paste the description directly from the booklet. This is only to give you an idea of what CSLB considers to be critical duties for each classification. Your certifier should complete this section in their own words and be as complete and accurate as possible. The final part of the work experience certificate is also to be completed by your certifier. They need to list their relationship to you and provide their contact information. Lastly, they will need to sign and date the certification. The next form we will discuss is the Owner Builder B General Building Construction Project Experience Form. This form only needs to be completed if you're applying for the B General Building Construction License and you want to receive experience credit for working on projects on your own property. A separate form is required for each project on the property. The experience must be verifiable through building permits, final inspections, and other documentation. You will need to list the building permit number here on line number 6. On line 7, you will need to provide the scope of the project. In boxes 8 through 10, you will need to provide more detailed information about the project. Question number 11 asks if other general construction contractors work on the project with you and what trades they performed. Remember, this information should be as complete and as accurate as possible.
With all the information Anu just covered, this is a good time to remind you that we are recording this workshop. We will post the video on our YouTube channel so you can go back and rewatch it in case there is anything you missed. Okay, so you got your application submitted. How do you check the status of that application? Here are 2 resources. First is the secure check. You will need your application fee number and contractor PIN number to get an update. We will send you that information after we receive, accept, and post your completed application. The second way to check is to look online at our processing times. Each week, we update our website with the date we receive the paperwork for a specific process. So look for the date being worked on and know that if the date shown is after the date we like to receive your paperwork, it's likely that we are busy working on your application. As you can imagine, CSLB receives hundreds, if not thousands, of documents every day, and we process them in the order they are received. So be sure to take extra time getting the application right, so we don't have to send it back to you to correct and then have to start processing your application again. When your application has been accepted, CSLB will send you a notice to appear for examination and a study guide. You should get your exam notice at least 3 weeks prior to your exam date. CSLB test centers are currently open. They were closed from December to February for COVID-19. CSLB has 7 test centers throughout California and encourages candidates to take their exams at the nearest test center.
If you are an applicant whose first language isn't English and you don't feel confident taking your exam in English, we do allow you to use a translator. The translator who you provide simply reads you the exam questions. Question number 16 on the application asks if you need to use a translator to complete the examination. The translator must be approved by CSLB in advance. You cannot just show up on the day of your examination to the test center with someone to translate the exam for you. When you get an exam date, make sure you do not miss it. If you fail to appear for your exam, you will have to pay a non-refundable $60 fee to reschedule. That fee may be waived once with documented evidence of a medical emergency or other circumstance beyond your control. Also, we have study guides available for each of our exams. Included in each of the study guides, you will find a list of sections and topics covered by the exam. They also include sample questions and how each section of the exam is weighted. We also include any recommended resources that you can use to prepare for the examination. These study guides are available online on our website. There's a bonus link to them on the bottom of the screen.
Here is a quick look at 2 of those study exams. The first is the Law and Business exam, which all qualifiers must take, no matter which license classification, including the D-Series limited classes. You can see the guide contains a breakdown of examination topics, some test strategies, sample questions, and resources that were used to help create that exam. You will see the same format on the B General Building Study Guide. We would recommend that you really pay attention to the exam content here, especially how we have broken down what percentage of questions there will be on each of the 5 topics on the exam. On the lower right of both of these 2 slides, you will see bonus links to the actual study guides, as well as a link to the complete list of study guides.
Again, our test centers are open. We do have COVID-19 procedures in place for applicants on the test date. Here they are. Plan to arrive at least 15 minutes early for your exam. Give yourself extra time to get yourself checked in. Unvaccinated applicants must wear a face mask or other face covering. Fully vaccinated individuals are not required to wear a face mask. Check and follow the local COVID-19 mask guidance for the city or county where you will be testing before you arrive to your test center. If you appear ill, you will have to reschedule your exam for at least 5 days later at no additional charge. And you will not be admitted into the test center more than 15 minutes prior to your exam time. We've also produced a short what to expect on test day video that you can watch on our YouTube channel. The link is at the bottom of your screen.
You will take your exam on a touchscreen computer. Before starting, you will see an on-screen tutorial that will take you through the process. The exam itself consists of multiple choice questions. You will also see a space on each question where you can, if you want, submit a comment about that question. You will get 3.5 hours to complete each exam. Don't arrive late, or that may reduce the amount of time you get to complete your exam. You will get your results at the end of the exam. If you don't pass the exam, you will not be allowed to review the questions you missed, but you will get a statement showing how you did on each section of the exam. You can reschedule the exam as many times as you need to within the 18 months period. as long as you pay the non-refundable $60 reschedule fee each time.
So after you pass your exams, what happens next? First, you'll need to pay the $200 for your initial licensing fee, which will be good for 2 years. You'll also need to complete an online asbestos open book exam. Plus, you'll need to file your required $15,000 contractor surety bond and possibly some other bonds depending on what type of business entity you will have. And you'll need to get your required insurance policy. If you have employees, you'll need to get workers' compensation insurance. If you're going to be an LLC, you'll also need liability insurance. You can see our website for more information on this coverage. Please note that your insurance company or broker can submit your insurance information to CSLB directly on our website. If you don't have employees, you must file a workers' compensation exemption with CSLB. You can do that online as well.
In about 5 to 10 business days, CSLB will send you a wall certificate and plastic pocket license card. Display the wall certificate in your main office or chief of business. Carry your pocket card with you, especially in situations when you are going to solicit business. Talk to potential customers or sign contracts. We encourage consumers to ask to see your pocket license. If you are going to have salesperson working for you, be sure to get them registered as a home improvement salesperson with CSLB. Check our website for more on how to do that. Your license will be good for 2 years. It will expire on the last day of the month when it was issued. For example, a license issued today, August 6, 2021, will expire on August 31st, 2023. Be sure to put that expiration date on your calendar, in your phone, anywhere you need, so you won't forget it. CSLB will send you a renewal notice in the mail approximately 60 days before it expires, but ultimately it is your responsibility to renew your license on time.
Here are a couple of other important deadlines to keep in mind. First, you want to notify CSLB within 30 days if you move or change your business address. Your renewal notice will be sent to the address of record that we have on file. So if you're not at that address anymore, you're probably not going to receive it. Plus, the Postal Service will not forward state government mail. Finally, notify CSLB within 30 days of all changes to your personnel on your license, especially if it involves the qualifier of the license.
Once you get your license and get to work, you might want to hire someone as a salesperson to solicit, sell, negotiate home improvement contracts on your behalf outside of your place of business. These people are called Home Improvement Salesperson, or HIS. Without a home improvement salesperson, the official personnel of record on a license are the only ones who can solicit, sell, negotiate, or execute a contract. That includes individual contractors, licensed qualifiers, partners, corporation officers, and LLC responsible managing officers, members, managers, or employees. A home improvement salesperson can work for more than one contractor. The licensee must notify CSLB in writing when they either associate or disassociate a home improvement salesperson with their license.
There are a couple of exceptions. First, those who only schedule appointments for the contractors or registered HIS. Bona fide service and repair people as well. These are the folks you call out for repairs, including things like air conditioning, heating, plumbing. But those service and repair people are going to be limited to the work that was initially requested by the buyer or the homeowner. For example, if your AC goes out and you call an HVAC company to come out, the service person does not have to be a registered salesperson. But if they go beyond the repair itself and then they want to sell you a new HVAC system, they would have to be a registered HIS. Also, don't employ unregistered salesperson. That subjects you to administrative discipline, and the salesperson might get a citation or possibly even a criminal misdemeanor. We've got bonus links at the bottom of this page if you want to look at the actual code, the section of law. The link is at the bottom of the page. Okay, so that is our presentation. Now it's time to answer your questions. So we have some questions here. And we'll just take turns answering the questions. Can transcripts be submitted electronically? FOD, can they submit their transcripts electronically?
No, currently we only accept it in paper.
Will a BS in another field and an AS in construction management get 36 months experience total? 18 plus 18. Can they combine FOD, their experience?
No, we cannot combine. We will give you the one that gets the most.
Next question is, hi there, do you know if international degrees will be accepted? Yes, so we did talk about that. Yes, you do get credit for any education, even if it wasn't here in the United States. We talked about how you just have to submit your transcripts. They do have to be translated and evaluated by an evaluation service that does business within the United States. So as long as they can do that for you, we would be able to review your transcript. If I'm applying for a C33 and my company name is Emmanuel's Paint and Drywall Consulting, do I have to change the name? I am also planning on applying for a C9 after completing the C33. So FOD, can he have a name such as, if it's somebody who is going to get their C33, can their company name be so-and-so's Paint and Drywall Consulting?
No, not until they actually have the C9 on their license. So initially they should go with Emmanuel's Paint or Painting, and then once they add C9, then they can change the name and add drywall to the name.
As an owner builder, can the person that guarantees my experience be the city county building inspector? So with the owner builder, you're going to want to make sure you fill out that form. You're going to fill out the form and include that information on the, you're going to include the information on the form. It's going to ask you for building permit number and all of the information. If the city inspector is agreeable to talking to us, you want to provide that contact information. But remember, it's two separate things. One is the owner builder form, and your work experience is separate. That you need somebody to fill out that form that says that you have at least 4 years of experience. Okay. But yes, we will talk to the city county building inspector. You guys have a workshop for painting. Select a panelist. Do you guys have a workshop for painting? No, this is the only workshop we have, but the rules are the same for no matter what classification you get. So it does apply to the painting contractors, as well as all of our classifications have to go through the same process. My husband and I want to get licensed, but I don't have experience, but I am a veteran. How will that work? We are thinking about a partnership. So FOD, husband and wife want to get a license. One is a veteran, but the other has the work experience, it sounds like.
Yeah, again, the qualifier, the person who has the experience has to submit the certification of work experience and be on the first page of application. If there is a partnership, yeah, you can both be on that license. And please submit the DD-214 with your application, because we will expedite for applicants and their spouse if they are within the military. So that would be fine.
Thank you. Who should be certifier in non-permit owner builder work experience? Can another licensee certify? Yes, another licensee, if you know a licensed contractor that is willing to be sign your certification, they can be your certifier. They just have to be aware and have knowledge that you have journeyman level experience, and we're looking for 4 years within the last 10 years. So it doesn't have to be a licensed contractor, but if you do have somebody who is licensed, yes, we would accept that. It can be, if you look at the bottom of the form, it mentions it can be a supervisor, a co-worker, somebody who has knowledge that you have journeyman level experience. So there's different categories on the bottom of the form that you'll want to look at. How many years of credit will you receive for bachelor's in engineering? Phil, do you want to take that one? How many years of credit?
Well, that is like, again, what we said, those are specifics. We can't tell as it is, because first of all, we have to see what kind of engineering it is, what kind of classification it is. So submit those with your application, and then we review it.
Mhm. If a qualifier wants to sell their business to an employee, can they continue to serve as a qualifier until the employee can obtain their own license? So a qualifier can remain on the license. The purpose of the qualifier is that's the person who has the 4 years of experience. So we have seen where somebody is a qualifier of the license until somebody else can replace them as a qualifier. So once the other person can prove that they have 4 years of journeyman level experience, you can remove yourself as a qualifier. Do I have to attend classes or courses to get the license? So as we explained, there are no educational requirements. We know that there are a lot of schools out there that offer preparation courses. That is up to you, completely up to you, but it is not a requirement. And no, we are not affiliated with any of the schools. If I will be office manager but not do any estimates, do I still need the salesperson license? Does an office manager have to be an HIS code?
No, as long as they, again, if they are not on the license, they're listed on the license and they're working only in the office, just scheduling, they do not get involved with the contract itself and bidding purposes and estimates. No, they don't need HIS.
Does experience managing projects for a major tech organization count as owner builder? So owner builder would be projects that you've done on your own property, and it would have to be something that you can prove through, you have to be able to document it. It has to be proven through building permits, plans, things of that nature. So that would be the owner builder. Other than that, if you wanted to see if it counts as work experience, you would need to put it on your work experience certification form and make sure that the person who is certifying is as detailed as possible as what exactly did you do. I need to, so it looks like this person wants to apply for a painting and a carpenter license separately. I'm not sure which one you mean, carpenter license. I don't know if you mean the B or the B2 license maybe. Yes, you'll have to apply separately. So as we discussed, you'll have to choose one classification first when you apply for your license, and then you can always add as many classifications as you would like, as long as you can prove the 4 years of experience within the last 10 years. But yes, you start with one. Can the apprenticeship and work experience overlap? For instance, I was an apprentice for 4 years and accrued work hours and experience at the same time. Can that time overlap, Fode? Can the apprenticeship and the work experience time overlap?
Well, usually that work that you put in is to get your apprenticeship. So we count that part as when we give you credit for apprenticeship. So no, in most cases, we don't grant credit for the time you're gaining your apprenticeship. That's our part of the apprenticeship program.
Is there any way for an applicant to know whether their listed experience is sufficient? Not beforehand. You have to submit your application, and then your application will be assigned to a technician, and that person will be in contact with you. They'll work with you. They'll let you know if it's sufficient. They'll let you know if they need more information, additional documentation. So once it hits their desk, they will be in contact with you, letting you know what they need from you. Can I qualify if my contractor paid me cash? So yes, we talked about, we understand that a lot of experience is cash pay. We understand that. So we talked about the different, in case you are asked to supply additional documentation, we do have some documents that you can look at, you can review to see what is acceptable documentation for somebody who was self-employed. And there's a long list of other documents that you can provide. Remember, we're looking for 4 years within the last 10 years. If you have copies of old contracts, perhaps, things of that nature, we'll take a look at them. I understand that specific jobs completed provide experience equivalent to the amount of hours it takes licensees. But what if I don't know how long jobs would take? Should I list the amount of hours in the application? No, what we're looking for is 48 months of experience within the last 10 years. So you would need to find somebody who can certify that they know that you have 48 months of experience within the last 10 years for the classification that you are applying for. And you want to make sure that they are very specific on what duties you performed. And remember, we're looking for journeyman level experience. Hi, I am looking forward to opening a flooring business. I would also like to be able to offer installation service. How do I go about having a license under the business? Vote, how can they get a, it looks like she's going to open a flooring business and wants to offer installation, but she wants to have a license for the installation. So
Yes, they have to submit application for original contractor license under the business name. Now the person again has to have a qualification, 4 years of experience in last 10 years in flooring. And we'll move forward, depending on what the entity of the business will be, and who can be on the license or not. But they need to submit their application for original contractor license for C15 classification.
okay. It says, am I able to apply as an owner builder if the permit numbers for the property are under my father's name, but I have been the project manager for the project? So it looks like the son has been working on the dad's home and they have permits pulled in the dad's name. Would he be able to use that experience vote under the owner builder if he's applying for a B license?
Well, he wouldn't be the owner builder because that's the father. So the question becomes, was he getting paid? How that whole process was. He can apply for it. We may have to do some verification on it. But yeah, that would be acceptable. Not as an owner builder, but as a self-employed.
Mm-hmm. To demonstrate my work experience, can I present letters from people with whom I've worked? So yes, that is one of the acceptable forms of documentation that's listed on the form that we provided. However, you don't need to send that in with your application. That is only something that you need to provide if a CSLB employee asks for additional documentation to verify your work experience. Initially, all you have to submit is your application and the certification of work experience. That's the first step. If we need something more, then we'll ask you to get those letters, and yes, they would be helpful. What would the process be if we start our application and the education credit is not enough to satisfy the 24 or the 36-month credit if we are relying on that to supplement the experience? So remember, we did talk about you don't want to rely on that just to squeeze by. You want to make sure that you have enough both education credit and also hands-on experience. So we can combine the two in order to get the 48. But you won't know if you're getting 24 months credit or 36 months credit until we actually see your transcripts, have them in front of us, and then we would be able to tell you that. We can't tell you that ahead of time. So you want to make sure that you have enough of both to equal the 48 months. In a partnership, do both of us have to take the exam or just the qualifier? So it's always just the qualifier who takes the examination. The qualifier is a person with the experience, and that is a person who takes the exams. I've seen many study guide products available, but it sounds like the link provided in this talk includes all information needed for preparation. Are they available for persons that have not yet submitted an application? So do you want to take that about the study guides? Do they have to go to a different school?
Yeah, they're on our website. For all the classifications, there is a study guide on our website. We provided a link to our workshop, so you can go in there and check all the, depending on the classification that you're going to apply for.
And so we're aware that there's other schools, but it's not a requirement. Some people find them helpful, but it's not a requirement. No, you do not need to attend. Does the study guide that the CSLB sends out after your application is accepted contain all the information needed to pass the law and trade you are applying for? So we talked about what information is contained in the study guide. Mainly the important part, the most important part, is the resources. It gives you a list of books and websites that you can start to research now that will help you prepare for the examination. It gives you a list of study topics that you can begin preparing, and it gives you about 2 or 3 sample questions, so you have an idea of how the questions are worded. My partner has 10+ years of carpentry working for several stakeholders, but not totaling more than 4 years for any one stakeholder. How should he show documentation? So he does have 10 years of experience, but it wasn't with one person. How can he prove that, folks?
Well, you can submit multiple certification of work experience from each one of the employers. So if you work, for example, 2 years for so-and-so employer, can submit one for that one, and then another 1 year for another employer. So it can be 3 or 4 certification of work experience, and it can cover a part of that 4 years in each one of those, as long as they total to 4 years and more.
Next question. For the exam, is there a book to study? So yes, and you're going to want to go ahead and look, like we mentioned, our study guides are available on our website. You can go to our website, cslb.ca.gov, and in the search engine type study guides, and then choose a classification. Remember, you're going to have to take a business and law exam, and then you will look for the one for the trade, specific to the trade that you're applying. And yes, there's a list of resources on each of the study guides. There's books, there's websites that you can begin to go through now to prepare for the exam. If a woman with no experience owns 51% of the partnership, can they apply for DBE jobs? Fo, do you want to take that one? If a woman with no experience owns 51% of the partnership, can they apply for DBE jobs?
As far as I know, the businesses, the licenses with when a woman is a majority owner, they can submit those, yes. That's far as we have seen. We don't regulate those, but that's as far as experience shown, as long as they are 50% and higher ownership, yes, they can.
Can someone with a General B license be my certifier for work experience? Yes, they can. It doesn't have to be a licensed contractor, but if there is a B licensee out there that has knowledge that you have 4 years of experience within the last 10 years at journeyman level, yes, they can be your certifier. A person with no experience can get a contractor license and create a company just using employee experience. So the way it would work is there can be many people on a license. The qualifier has to prove 4 years of experience within the last 10 years. So, some corporations have many different people on the license. The qualifier has to have the experience. That's the person that will be taking the exams. That's the person who will be supervising the projects. 3.5 hours to complete the test. How many questions are we talking about roughly? So each exam is different. There are anywhere between 100 to 120 questions on the exam. So the business and law, you take that one first, and then you'll come back and take the trade. You can have a break in between and come back and take the trade exam. If you don't use the 3.5 hours, let's say you finish in 2, you can go ahead and move on to the next exam. You don't have to wait until 3.5 hours are up. Everybody's different. Okay, it looks like that was the last of our questions. Thank you all for your questions. If you have any other questions about your application, we encourage you to drop an email to our licensing division. Here is the email address. licensing@cslb.ca.gov. Again, licensing@cslb.ca.gov. If at some point you need to reschedule your exam, you can get that process started by dropping an email to exams@cslb.ca.gov. We've also put together a list of available resources for women considering a career in construction. If you haven't already, be sure to download this presentation to get them. You can download the presentation on the green banner at the top of our homepage, www.cslb.ca.gov. If you're watching the archived video of this workshop on our YouTube page, you'll find the link to the presentation down below.
We welcome your comments or topics for future webcasts. Just drop us an email on social@cslb.ca.gov. A special thanks to our Licensing Division and Public Affairs Office for their help on this workshop. The Get Licensed to Build workshop is a copyrighted production of the California Contractor State Licensing Board. Thanks for watching.